Very good morning to all of you. I will bring you to a place where very few people get proper early warning, that is population aging. All of us is growing older, but we are not ready to hear any single issue of this thing. Particularly, I will share with you about older women, the most sufferer group of disasters and climate change. I conducted one small study and in Bangladesh. It was an academic study, and Bangladesh, one of the most disaster affected and densely populated country in the world, and though it is a developing one, but we are seriously facing the problem of old age. Currently, we have huge number of population in our country, about 170 million. And out of them, about 8% are older. And Bangladesh is facing two serious challenges. Number one is population aging, and number two is disaster. Because of its geographical location, flood is very much common in our country. And about 20% of the total population, they are residing in the coastal areas of Bangladesh and seriously affected by natural disaster, mainly caused by cyclone and tidal surges. And natural and human-induced disasters tend to have a disproportionate impact on older people, particularly on older women. Because older women are the major victim of environmental degradation and disasters, not in our country, throughout the world. But it is very much unfortunate. We are not too much attentive, minimum attentive to give special focus to this special population. And aging is not a serious problem for the poor people. It is the byproduct of development, and developed societies are facing seriously about the aging issues. Unfortunately, in this conference, you will hear very few issues on population aging, particularly the old age sufferings of the older women. Currently, around 8% of Bangladesh population, which is 170 million, constitutes the elderly, 14 millions. And in our country, older people, they are being respected by the government. Government declared the persons of Bangladesh having 60 years and above is be respected as senior citizen. And more than 50% of the total older persons is women. Various levels of socio-cultural limitations and disabilities make older women most vulnerable section of our society. Usually, the older person, particularly, there are three types of older persons throughout the world. 60 to 70 we call young old, 70 to 80 we call middle old, and 80 plus is very old. Older person is growing faster than younger population. And unfortunately, the very older sections, 80 plus, throughout the world, they are increasing like anything. So we should give proper attention to this section. Various levels of socio-cultural limitation and disabilities make older women most vulnerable section of our society, particularly in disaster situations. With limited scope, with limited scope in receiving disaster-related early warning, older women in coastal areas can hardly get prepared for disaster management in advance. The early presenter, he mentioned that it is difficult to get early warning information for the older person, particularly the older women, because their situation is not that they can get this information, early warning, easily. Older women is severely marginalized, and challenges are much more magnified in coastal areas where society is very much conservative. Particularly, in our society, in coastal areas, the society is very much conservative. Women are fairly housebound, and strict compliance of parda, that means veils, limits their participation with men in community activities. It is very much common in our society, particularly in the coastal areas. Having been seriously affected, older women are surviving in these coastal areas with their ground resources and unique capacities. They have some exceptional ability and skill to guide disaster risk families for maintaining resiliency. Older women experience indigenous knowledge and practice of environmental management increases the coping capacity of families and communities in hazardous areas and thus contributes to disaster risk reduction. So I will share now about a study to identify the pattern and level of vulnerability, coping strategies, and disaster experiences of older women. In 2015, a qualitative study was conducted in one of our southern coastal villages under Barguna district of Bangladesh, which had been severely affected by super cyclone of 1991, Cedar 2007, Ayla 2009, and Mohasen 2013. 10 older women were selected for case study, and 2 focus group discussions were conducted involving 26 older women for obtaining relevant information. Selected women were from lower and middle income families of disaster affected coastal areas. The results which we have obtained, the majority of selected women are 60 to 70 years of age. Most of them are widowed because, women have throughout the world, negatively I mentioned, a bonus that they have to survive more than their husbands 6 to 10 years as widow. And widow person are the most challenging in the world. They have no formal education. Most of our coastal dwellers, they do not have formal education and income, living with married sons suffering from various chronic illness. Most of them lost their relations and income earning family members and property in different disasters. Affected older women become physically ill, so far we have observed, emotionally shocked, and got traumatized after losing their near relations, property, and family refuge because due to the disasters. Lifelong fighting experiences against various disasters make them resilient in managing disaster situations. During disasters, most of the older women opted to remain in their homes for taking care of the family belongings. They hardly preferred to move to the cyclone shelters because of their insufficiency and unsuitability. It is again unfortunate. The number of shelter centers are limited in our country, but again, the shelters are not at all suitable for older person, particularly older women. So the older women, they are not interested to go there. Better they opted to remain in their home to take care of their belongings. After disasters, older women of coastal areas seriously suffer mainly from scarcity of sweet water, food, shelter, toilet facilities, clothes, fuel, medicine, and cash management security. It is very much common in our country, but you have to think the older women, they face these challenges very differently. Yes, from different government organizations and non-government organization sources, they receive negligible amount of relief materials, but unfortunately, most of which are not suitable to older women because they need different type of support during disaster, just after disaster, but what they are receiving, that is not that much suitable to them. Older women struggle to turn back to regain their normal family life immediately after disasters. They survived and lived in disaster with their strong religious faith. The coastal areas, the older women particularly, they have strong religious belief, religious faith, disaster experience they have because they are living continuously with different type of disasters, indigenous knowledge, resistant capacities, unique strategies and skills. Their knowledge and skills in plantation, homestead gardening, cattle and chicken rearing, food and seed preservation, inter-process of crop production, etc., play a crucial role in recovery and rehabilitation of the families. Their role and contribution to the survival of their families and communities in this volatile situation is consequential. So we have few recommendations. Older women, they mention that they should not be ignored because, older women are seriously ignored, not in our country, throughout the world. They should not be neglected and abused in disaster situation. Rather be honored and cared rightfully because it is their right to have some cooperation. It is not the matter of leniency. For the sake of disaster risk reduction, older women-friendly and discrimination-free emergency relief support should be offered, and sufficient suitable cyclone shelters must be built for safe evacuation and refuge. Early warning related information must be available to the older women in preparedness for responses. And finally, in our country or throughout the world, we do not have sufficient information about the situation, the challenges, the needs of the older women, particularly in disaster situations. So we get a recommendation from the respondents that they requested us to get in-depth assessment should be undertaken in coastal areas for having data on older women's situation, their challenges, and reach capacities, because older women, though they are full of experiences, they have the capacities on disaster management. Such knowledge can be used for disaster risk assessment, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and response. This is all about my presentation, and I think if you have any question or any feedback, please raise your voice.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I come from Kenya, and it's a very good presentation, but just wondering, your emphasis is more on women. Does it mean that the men who are old are not vulnerable? Because when disaster strikes, it's both men and women. So I'm wondering, why is your report so much leaning on the women? Because the men are also vulnerable. Is there a report on the men's side?
No, thank you very much. Because, older women, they are more vulnerable, particularly in coastal areas of our country. And throughout the world, when you go and look the situation of older men and women, you will find there are very unique differences. Because women, they are suffer more than men everywhere in the world. So we took this special section for our study purpose, not that older men are not suffering.